Welcome to the Inside Sales Enablement Podcast. Where has the profession been? Where is it now? And where is it heading? What does it mean to you, your company, other functions, the market? Find out here. Join the founding father of the sales enablement profession, Scott Santucci, and trailblazer Brian Lambert as they take you behind the scenes of the birth of an industry. The Inside Sales Enablement Podcast starts now.
I'm Scott Santucci.
I'm Brian Lambert, and we are the Sales Enablement Insiders. Our podcast is for sales enablement leaders looking to elevate their function, expand their sphere of influence, and increase span of control within their companies.
Together, Brian and I have worked on over 100 different kinds of sales enablement initiatives. As analysts, consultants, or practitioners, we've learned the hard way what works, and maybe what's most important, what doesn't.
Yeah, and our podcast is different. We actually are spending a lot of time talking to our listeners, and what they're telling us is they appreciate our conversational format and how we're talking real issues. We're sharing the insights that we're learning from what's happening right now. And on this podcast today, we're going to talk about the Sales Enablement Summit, which is the first ever Sales Enablement Summit in San Francisco that was here in September of 2019. And Brian, were able to actually give a presentation and a keynote at that event. And I thought it would be good to debrief with that live with Scott, because we haven't talked about it much.
Thank you, Brian. So what we'd like to do here at Insider Nation for you, our insiders, is to keep you up to speed on the things that are going on, the conversations, but also the events. So since I wasn't there, I have a bunch of questions that I want to know from Brian, and I'm sure you do too. So the first thing that I'd love to do is, at a high level, I'd like to know, tell me about the event, Brian. So what was this function? Who were the type of people there? What was the mood? Describe for me, what it was like, because I want to know.
All right, cool. Yeah, so this is San Francisco. Event was on a Wednesday, Thursday. It's actually being run by a event management company. So this is the first summit or event that was vendor sponsored and also not run by the Sales Enablement Society. So here you have basically a startup of what they believe will be a global summit to bring together sales enablement practitioners with others in the field. And in this case, they ran the Sales Enablement Summit alongside the Product Marketing Summit. So in the Sales Enablement space, there are about 250 folks from a variety of different companies, small, medium, large, startups, even international companies. And there were a couple of people there from overseas, but there were companies like Amazon, Hired, Pluralsight, et cetera. And the other conference, which was product marketing, had about, I'd say about 450 or so. So almost double the audience size there. There was one main stage, and we would have our networking events together with the product marketers. So from a content perspective, a lot of different topics, but Scott, I think it'd be great for me to share this little nugget. We talked about the Forrester definition before. And
the new one, right?
Yeah, the new one. And, as we shared with our listeners in 2008, we actually defined sales enablement, and then Forrester came out in 2019 and redefined it. But interestingly enough, two presenters at this conference used your definition, our definition from Forrester's 2008 definition, not the new one, to talk about sales enablement and frame it out. And both of them said that definition was their favorite. And there were two different lenses. One was, hey, this strategic view of sales enablement is what I liked. And the other person that shared it talked about how it was an ongoing initiative, that it was a strategic function, yes, but it was also this idea of ongoing value add to sales. So
what's interesting about that, Brian, is literally just this week, I was in Chicago working with an executive group about transforming from one business to the cloud business. And you know what they had as a reference material? the old Sales Enablement Defined report from back in 2008 also. And they kept referencing that one. So,
so the actual physical report.
Right.
Itself,
they had it outlined and everything. And
printed out?
Yeah.
Like laying around?
Right.
Cool.
Right.
Well, that's good. They still print things. That's good to know.
Well, I think the point is they're using that as a foundation to move forward towards the future and not some of the newer ones. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is cool because I liked how that report broke down the definition, but it also broke down all the different ways that you could tackle sales enablement. And it was broad at the time, and people actually gave feedback that this was a pretty broad definition. But when you look at what's going on today, and I know you've done a lot of work around the digital transformation and how that drives strategies forward, that definition that we're seeing pop up here in the course of a week, two presenters and actually a company, a vendor company, a SaaS company, that definition is perfect for, helping enable go to market. That's pretty cool. So that's an interesting data point, I think, because when I looked at the presentation that I gave, that definition was obviously the definition that I used as well. So there you go.
So we should probably do a whole report on that or a whole podcast on that. But so thanks for that update. So you threw me for a loop in our report from when you were in Boston by telling me, by jumping on me live that boom, guess what? The Forrester has a new definition. That was surprising. Now you're telling me, hey, we had a presentation to sales enablement practitioners that isn't vendor sponsored, nor is it Sales Enablement Society, and 3 of the people use the old definitions. That's really weird. I guess we'll have to unpack that.
Yeah, and you should start going to these events, and you can hear it yourself. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. I should start going. That's funny. So, all right, that's now what I want to do is I want to know what was your presentation. So now this is more for our vendors. Brian and I walked through some of it beforehand. So he got my eyes on it. We role played out parts of it, but I didn't hear the exciting conclusion, right? Because we changed the ending a bit. So I'm excited to hear exactly go through us the storyboard of what your presentation was, and then we'll unpack it later. Yeah,
and you said it's for our vendors, but I think you meant for Insider Nation.
Insider Nation.
We don't have any vendors. Do we?
That's true. You're right.
That's true.
Anyway, I'm actually reading on the screen. So in case you know, sometimes we actually have notes, and we're sharing them on Zoom. And I was actually talking and looking at that. So I think I'm better without the notes, Brian.
That's right. And because one of the things that I did want to call out as I was sharing this with you is the idea that this was, again, as we saw in Boston, vendor supported. And I want to call out that this is it's great to have, HighSpot and Seismic and others there supporting this because they made it possible. And they also injected a lot of case studies and examples that I could actually reference in throughout my presentation. But the timeline here, or the story arch, if you will, of mine was, hey, businesses are evolving, we know that, but industries are evolving, and I use the news or print industry in the news industry, and talked about how it's evolved from print all the way through to devices, and what's really driving that is customers. So we all know these things, but then I asked right after that, what are you guys enabling? And they had 2 minutes, and they were able to kind of read out. And I basically used, Scott, the domains, the flavors of sales enablement as a way to debrief that exercise. So they were able to bucketize their work in either sales talent development, sales messaging, demand generation, or sales administration, as this is the domains and the flavors. So I would say at this conference, the 250 people, I'd say over 50 to 60% were in the talent development, sales talent development. 15 were in sales messaging. Smaller than about, small group were in demand gen, and only like 1 or 2 were in sales administration. So the bulk were in sales talent development. And then I asked, okay, well, what are you guys working on? And we bucketized that discussion into There are those who are building something. There are those who are running ongoing programs. And then there are those who are leading a strategic business unit. And so of 250, I'd say 80% are in a build and deliver cadence or effort. 10 to 15% are in a running a program, like, for example, onboarding. And then three or four people raise their hand if they led a strategic business unit. So the story arch continues with, okay, well, what's common across all of these domains and lenses is you have to be able to generate demand, position yourself, get funding, and have an operation. And what we did, Scott, is, borrow your idea of this concept that you've been working on, and you and I have both actually been working on for quite some time around thinking about sales enablement as a business within a business. Mm-hmm. So we walked through things like, who are your investors? How do you get the finance to actually run your business, and what kind of business are you in? If you're in a build and deliver business, what does that look like? If you're in running a program business, what does that look like? And if you are leading a business unit, what does that look like? And I use my past experiences of, I've started up now 5 sales enablement functions. I started one up with you and 4 others. And I use my example here of my recent work to set up and pivot an L&D organization to an enablement function. So that's the big story arch, and that was what we covered. And I appreciate your help in landing this concept and around business within a business, because that really resonated with folks. They were really chomping at the bit to discuss this idea of running the function of enablement as a business within a business.
So let me, before we talk more about that, let me summarize what I heard. So I heard what you did is you framed the conversation by saying, hey, here's an example, and I know you used you yourself as an example as an old paper boy, and how much that whole industry has changed to frame it out. And then given this, all of our businesses are going through this kind of transformation. So then you said, okay, so given this transformation, we all work within companies that are transforming. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask, what is it that you're enabling? So the first question that you asked was what type, and we should probably do a whole podcast on how we came up with the flavors, or you call them the domains. But the overwhelming majority of your audience is focusing on training and development type activities.
That's right? Yep, that's correct.
So then the next thing is, of those, the next lens that you do, so that's my lens. Brian's lens, to sort this out, that I think is great, is looking at it as, are you an individual contributor? Are you building programs, or what Brian and I like to call services, or are you running a strategic department? And the overwhelming majority of your audience were individual contributors. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And they were in a startup mode, basically, of getting the function or their role off the ground.
Right. So what I would imagine then is that those people would be because most of your audience is training and development, or the sales talent development, and then the second part is individual contributors. Their orientation before hearing you talk is probably, hey, I got building playbooks, or I'm building training programs, or the like.
Yeah, that's right. Or how to drive change, how to get a seat at the table, things like that. Right.
So if that's where I'm at, then you drop the bomb of business within a business on them, and you said that went over really well. I got to tell you, I'm having a hard time understanding how that went really well when somebody's thinking about the world through an individual playbook. Walk me through that. Like, what was some of the reaction, and why did that resonate so much, and why did you get? What kind of feedback did you get afterwards?
Yeah, that's a good question. Timing wise, I was towards the end of day one, and I sat in the audience, and I had a lot of empathy for what I was hearing. All the speakers, but the challenge that I was having as a previous practitioner was, wow, everybody's talk is very laser beamed on things like a playbook, on change management, on how to get a seat at the table, on how to learn from past failures. These are and it's rapid fire, and we just got kind of fire hose with topic, and there's no overarching structure for any of it. And, they're all individually passionate and well delivered. But the person that really struck me the most was this lady that was a product marketer, and she came in and said, I treated sales as a customer, and she went through a method, an approach that she,
Amen.
So she talked, right? Exactly. I said, you got to talk to Scott. and her whole thing was, let me tell you about the approach I took to treat sales as a customer.
Yeah.
And she was the first to do that, as opposed to, this is what I did and Unleashed. And I say, this is what I did to sales was everybody's talk. This is what I did to sales. She was the first one that says, here's what I did with my sales leadership, which was a massive breath of fresh air for me personally. And then I came up.
Brian, let me pause on you that, because I think you bury the lead on those kind of things. It sounds subtle what you're saying, doing things to sales versus doing things for sales, or with sales. Talk to me a little bit more about what you mean by that, because I think that idea is really powerful, but I think you gloss over it and you bury the lead a little bit.
Yeah, sure. When you look at, and I'm gonna let me just tell you what the topics were. If I'm pulling up the agenda, right now, and I look at it, it is, and I'll just hit you with it. It's playbooks, it's new hire training, it's playbooks again, it's sales kickoff, it's here's one on content, how to build content. Here's one on getting a seat at the table. So, and the thing about all of those is that I struggled with was nobody really ever talked about sales buy-in. Mm-hmm. And you and I both know through the podcast is we talk a lot about making sure you're managing stakeholders and that you're managing up, down, and across, but also that you're serving sales leadership.
Yep.
So I just called that out as a red flag to the audience to say, listen, here's my approach to this talk. I'm at the end of the day, and I asked them, I said, who here is now leaving with all the answers? And everybody laughed. Literally the whole room laughed. And I said, well, who here is actually leaving, and right now in your moment in time, a little bit more confused about what you should be doing? And pretty much everybody raised their hand. So everybody agreed that it was great topics, but with these inputs, it led to a little bit more confusion. Yeah. And I said, this is what I'm going to talk to you about today. I'm going to attempt in this time that I have to frame up everything you heard today and also give you a launching pad for tomorrow in a way that organizes this stuff so that you can drive your business forward. And that's what we're doing. That's how I started my talk.
Wow. That sounds powerful. That's great. So tell me how people reacted to it then. So you've done your presentation, you've done your mic drop, you walk out of there, people are carrying you off the stage. All that. Tell me what the bar conversations were like.
Yeah. So there were 3 buckets. I'll say bucket 1 was for folks that were new in their career, and they had either read it on my bio or whatever. And I've been around the block a little bit, and my background, they're like, wow. And I had mentioned that I was the peer review on the original Sales Enablement Defined. And they were just like, holy cow, this guy's been in this and he helped create it. I got to talk to him. I need some help. I want him to give me some advice in my role. And they're kind of new to this whole sales enablement things. I love doing that. I love talking to folks. And I hope, Insider Nation has some of those folks that are actually new to their career, and we're mentoring them through this, Scott, because that's the first bucket. The second bucket was those that are been in the space and, quite frankly, they're a little bit agitated. I had 2 people come up to me and say, boy, I was a little bit, everybody had their own view, and individually it was great, but I got a little agitated. I felt like, getting fire hosed there until you got up there. So thanks for helping me organize this stuff and also calming me down, right? So I didn't feel overwhelmed that I have to go implement everything everybody was saying, and it allowed me to take a step back and think about this. So thank you for that. So that was the second bar conversation. And then the third bar conversation was, me, I'm a little bit of a I don't know. Maybe it's our days as an analyst. You can call it like it is. But one of the comments I made, and I didn't plan to do this, but it struck me as I was sitting there when I did this, that here we are on the fourth floor of a San Francisco, 250 of us. The floor upstairs, there's a double the amount of people in product marketing. And if you think about it, there's double the amount of people upstairs, planning on what they're going to launch on sales, and do to sales. Here we are in our sales enablement room about to receive all this stuff from upstairs in a way. And nobody's in here. The crowd wasn't here. I said, isn't this ironic that we're held by the same conference host and we're drinking wine together and networking, but we go into two different floors, and this is the problem, guys. This is right here. Think about this. And this is the stuff that I think about. I'm sorry, but why is that happening? And then the second piece is where's the managers? Where's sales managers right now? Think about what the sales managers are doing. Well, we have so many people on product marketing building stuff to launch to sales. Here we are in sales enablement of all the stuff we're going to do to sales. What sales managers doing? They're closing deals to pay for all these trips.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm sorry, I had to bring that up, but we need to take a hard, long look at this. And this is an example of these silos, guys, that I think are a problem. And that's what the third bar conversation was. Holy crap, you're right.
That's such a great point. So you have upstairs, you have product marketers coming up with more things of what to do to sales, following their checklists. Then you have a whole group of sales enablement people who are about to prepare themselves to do onto sales a whole bunch of other things also that might be different things than what the product marketing folks are doing. And the receivers of that are going to be the sales managers who have to put it all together and figure out whether the stuff that is for them to do from product marketing and the stuff to do from sales enablement, how they're going to actually put it into the bloodstream of the individual sellers themselves. That's a really great point. You were very Zen-like all of a sudden. What's up?
Yeah, I got Zen. I don't know what happened. It just came out too, but
you just couldn't help it. If you guys know Brian, that's what happened.
I couldn't help it. I've said, part of me is like wondering if I'll get invited back, but okay. I hope I do, because everybody's, the people that said it was super helpful and it made them think. And right, it is by golly important. And one person said, by golly, dag nabbit. Gosh darn it. Hey, we've got a technology orbit of all this, this is we talked about it at networking. There's all these technology. Then you have a kind of a training orbit, and somebody has to throw these things out for folks to think about it a little bit more holistically, so we don't get sucked into these vortexes of training and or technology, for example, which are big gravitational forces in sales enablement right now.
Awesome. So let's wrap this up with one story. So afterwards, what happened? I'm one of those people who I believe what I get the most value out of a conference is the conversations about the subject matter, interviewing the presenters about what they took away from the speakers. So that's what I got. And then who knows what else happens in conferences. So what else happened?
Right. Yeah, well, you have a long history of this, and you know that it's after where the conversations get really real, right? And,
exactly.
And that's you learn a lot in those because folks can relate to you, but also they're sharing things that perhaps they wouldn't other places because they're at an event like this, and that's what happened, right? So we are actually going to go to a vendor dinner, and this is one of those it's really surreal. And I texted you on this because I'm walking down with, I have 5 or 6 people. We're heading over to a dinner, and I'm walking and I look to my right and it says the Palace Hotel. And I'm like, hey, hang on a second. Stop. And everybody's like, oh my God, what's going on? Is he getting mugged or what? And I said, this right here. Look, Palace Hotel. What is it? I point to it. I said, this right here is when I told you guys that we defined sales enablement. This is where this conference was where we rolled this out. And Scott and I and a lot of sales enablement practitioners, this is kind of like the genesis story, the origin story of sales enablement. those definitions that were used today. It was right here. Let's go in here. We have to go in here. They're like, no freaking way. I don't know who said that, but that's literally what they said. So we're going there, and I said, let's go into the bar. We went into that. Remember that? I know you and I kind of chatted on text over this, but the Pied Piper bar in there.
Yeah.
There's this cool picture, and I brought him in there, and I said, look, you're Carol. Carol was at that conference, and she was sat right here, and this is what she talked about, and that was 12 years ago or whatever. And Carol is now in a strategic role in sales enablement, but it started right here on this bar stool. And then you're Daniel. Daniel sat here. Here's what he talked about, and now he's over here in this major SaaS company that everybody knows. This is where Kunal sat, and this is where he's at in a VC firm. These guys are all doing super well, and they all sat right here, right where we are right now. Let's take a picture and send it to Scott. And so that's why we shot you that weird picture, and you're like, no way, is that the Pied Piper? And who the hell are those people?
What are you doing? And you missed the one thing that we all had. There weren't the tequila shots.
Yeah, that's right, and that's when we got the tequila shots, because that's it doesn't really happen in sales enablement with Scott or I until we kind of christen it with tequila shots.
There must be tequila shots.
There must be.
Just like a sales kickoff, there must be tequila
that's
shots.
Right. So that's what we did, and it was a bit, it's a humbling thing. It's exciting, and it kind of makes you think, wow. And then, everybody enjoyed it. We had a great time, and we wish you were there. That's for sure. And everybody's like, "Who's Scott?" We keep talking about Scott like he's here, but he's not. And so
he's there in spirit.
He's here in spirit, yeah.
So Insider Nation, this is a great reason to come to the Sales Enablement Society conference, wouldn't you think, Brian? Because who knows?
Yeah, that's right. Tequila shots. Tequila shots. Right? Yeah, and you and I will go, and we'll do that. And you're doing a talk there, so we'll carry you off the stage and start talking to people, and you can tell us your historical view of sales enablement and what's going on at tequila shots. That's right.
And what we're going to do is we're going to do some live sessions there too. So if you have some ideas and you're going, guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to be on our show, and we're going to just put you on the spot like we like to do and talk about it. But don't worry, we'll change the names for Protected Instant if you want to, and we'll react to sessions like this, or we'll share new ideas. Maybe we'll critique some people's work. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things that we're going to get at. Insider Nation, please give us your thoughts, your feedbacks. Please like and share if you haven't done it, or check us out on iTunes, and please give us a rating and a vote. That always helps us help you more. And with that, we're going to wrap up our show. Take care and see you out there.
Thanks for joining us. To become an insider and amplify your journey, make sure you've subscribed to our show. If you have an idea for what Scott and Brian can cover in a future podcast, or have a story to share, please email them at engage@insidese.com. You can also connect with them online by going to insidese.com, following them on Twitter, or sending them a LinkedIn request.